Hello again and welcome to Forum for a Better Understanding. I had so much fun last week talking with Dr. Grace Schireson about her new book, Zen Women, that I thought, why not have a panel that would also talk about Zen Buddhism and the Zen Buddhist priest life, the way a Zen Buddhist person lives in the world. Let's expand the panel and bring on some other guests. So that's what we've done today. Returning is Dr. Grace Schireson, who is a Zen Buddhist priest. We saw her last week. I hope you remember that. Right next to her is Mary Ellen Macneill, who is a friend, but also another Zen Buddhist priest here living in Oakhurst. And sure enough, across from me is Grace's husband, the Reverend Dr. Peter Schireson, who in his own right, a Zen Buddhist priest, and all three are able to share today about their own form, the way they live out this tradition, this practice. So Grace, briefly, what is it you'd like to open up with as a thought to let people who weren't here last week get a glimpse into yourself at this point in your life?
Well, last week we talked about the fact that I had a special ceremony as I became abbess of my temple, and I didn't say that much about my community of practitioners here in the Valley. And Mary Ellen's my student here in the Valley. My husband is not my student. We have to be very clear about that. Yeah, he has his own teacher. But anyway, I've been working now since 1995 to develop a Zen Buddhist community of practitioners so that we could meditate together. We do so at Empty Nest Zendo in North Fork, in Fresno at the Unitarian Church on Tuesday nights, and also in Modesto on Thursday nights at the Church of the Brethren.
Mary Ellen, introduce yourself, please.
I'm Mary Ellen Macneill. I started meditating with Grace in about 1998.
Whoa.
And I am a Roman Catholic. I started meditating really as a way of deepening my spiritual life because I was looking for a way as a woman of being deeply spiritual in my daily life. Since ordination as a Catholic wasn't available to me, I had a strong sense that spirituality could express itself completely in the life of an ordinary person, and I wanted to find some way of pursuing that. And so, fortunately, I found this opportunity through Zen.
Peter, your connection personal regardless of Grace.
Well, I became interested in Zen long before Grace and I met. I was about 15 years old, and I was reading philosophy books. And the more I read, the more it dawned on me that these brilliant men were terribly unhappy. Their philosophy didn't seem to be doing them much good. And as I continued to read and explore and poke in different directions, I started reading about these Zen characters. And I thought, they know something that I don't know, and it's doing something for them. They're having more fun than I am. I was convinced they were having more fun than I was.
More fun than a 15-year-old.
That's a lot of fun.
Awesome.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good.
Even then you were thinking like that. Wow.
Well, I guess I was. I had no idea it had anything to do with religion. I had no idea about any of that. And one day, several years later, as a college student, I went to UCLA, I saw a poster, a little sign advertising a talk by a Japanese Zen master. And I thought, oh my God, maybe he's one of those guys. And he was. And that was my introduction. And he taught me to meditate. And that was 1964.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is, see, the stories on this program just get more and more interesting because we think we have one guest that we're kind of excited about, then we meet two more that we have equal excitement for. Thank you so much for joining the panel today. Now, what we're going to do now is maybe help all of us appreciate the world of Zen Buddhism. Now, all of us have seen Kung Fu movies. I mean, if you haven't, I'm sorry, you've missed a world of wonderful stuff. But you're going to see now the connection between Kung Fu and Zen Buddhism. They are not that far apart. Stay tuned.
Many people in the Western world think Kung Fu is all about combat, about beating up the opponent. It's true that the original Kung Fu monks were legendary warriors defending one Chinese emperor after the other. But there is another side to this martial art, perhaps the most important one, according to Berkeley Professor of Religious Studies, Robert Scharf.
They say this is not actually about harming human beings. It's not even necessarily about defending oneself. It's really a form of personal cultivation.
Gay Hobner, a fundraiser for a nonprofit charity, says she has benefited.
I practice Kung Fu because it's a combination of going to the gym and the therapist. And it's also, I found a spiritual home here as well.
How?
How? Because I think that the reasons people go to church are the same reasons a lot of us come here, for that sense of spiritual renewal.
There is a spiritual side to Kung Fu. It's called Chan Buddhism, and through it, Kung Fu becomes an instrument of enlightenment.
You must understand they're one, not a two. Just like our mental and physical. We have to understand there's one piece, one body.
Here, come on, go!
Shi Yanming is a 34th generation Shaolin monk, a Kung Fu master who defected from China in 1992. He's established a Shaolin temple and Kung Fu school in downtown Manhattan.
That's why I defected. I want to spread the Shaolin philosophy, our martial arts, to the rest of the world.
A fundamental precept of Buddhism is that the mind must be emptied of all worldly desires through meditation, and only then can a person become enlightened. Yanming says that martial arts are action meditation. In other words, focusing so intently on the complex moves of Kung Fu that the mind empties all of life's anxieties.
The point of Buddhist meditation, there's many different kinds of Buddhist meditation, but the point of most of them is to quiet and ultimately still that inner voice, because they believe when you still the inner voice, then who we really are comes forward. It just becomes naturally apparent.
There's yet another side of Kung Fu, the artistic side. It was on display in San Francisco recently. This was a rehearsal for a performance, a collaboration between Shaolin monks and the acclaimed Lines Ballet Company. The artistic director is Alonzo King.
A lot of times people will look at their movement and think, this looks violent, or it's preparing for some kind of struggle, but it's dancing.
But these students are not interested in dancing Kung Fu. They're more interested in the essentials of Shaolin philosophy. That means that while learning martial arts, they must also cultivate a sense of ethics, one that encompasses justice, diligence, honesty, hard work, and mental discipline. Melanie Lowe has been a student of Shi Guolin for 12 years.
He has a term called monkey mind, where we're not focused, we're thinking about all these other things in our life. And then he tells us to bring ourselves back here, back at the present moment, and practice and focus.
And the ultimate goal of all this practice, this action meditation, is a state of enlightenment.
Strike!
Yanming says it's a very happy state to be in.
Have you achieved total enlightenment?
I achieve understand myself clearly, yes.
And what does that feel like?
Feel like a Merry Christmas, Happy New Year.
Yanming says Kung Fu is for everyone, no matter what their religion, and that the world would be a more peaceful, happier place with action meditation. Then he says every day would be a holiday. For Religion and Ethics News Weekly, I'm Lucky Severson in New York City.
You know, I got to thank Religion and Ethics. It's one of our best programs here at Channel 49. It's on every week, a couple of times. This clip reminds us of just the connection, not only between Kung Fu and Zen Buddhism, possibly, but also the implications of how certain concepts cross all cultures, all religions, all races, all traditions, and they become common possibilities for all of us. As he said at the end, Kung Fu is for everyone. And it's not just to go to see the movie, it's to actually incorporate some of the philosophy. I wonder if our wonderful panel, who are way more versed in all of this, would like to just crack open, even if it's one piece of what we just saw, so our viewers will understand more of what they just saw.
Well, I just hope that people don't think I can do that. So I can barely walk across the room. That's my special power. But what I related to was what you said about how there are things that transcend cultures, and that is that there is a spiritual body of energy that all religions have access to. And through meditation, Zen Buddhists put their roots like a tree down into that water of spiritual nourishment and then blossom as themselves in their work in the world. In this case, they very actively integrate body and mind, and we do the same in our own meditation practices. So maybe we should go on, or do you want me to say more now?
Well, let's let Mary Ellen have one insight or one thing that very much resonates with you, Mary Ellen.
Well, I think I want to say something about what, not a disagreement with the point of view of the clip, but maybe a little different point of view, because in a sense, I felt as though what they're looking for in that video was some kind of perfection, and in a certain, some perfection of attention and movement and of presentation. And what has been different for me is what we call being a lotus in muddy water. That is being able to be in the messiness of the world, and even in the messiness of our own mind, and have some stability. And that's what we can bring to in our work in the world to people that are suffering. So for me, this is very beautiful. The clip is very beautiful. In this life, I will never be able to do any of that, But I also say that the quality of attention that and the precision of attention that those people have is definitely something that we try to cultivate in meditation on the cushion.
Peter, before we take the break, one last thought from you. You were like lighting up when we saw that wonderful effort of him, and when he does his kick and he goes.
Yeah.
What else was there something you'd like to share about what you saw?
Well, first I'd like to say that I'm, as Grace's husband, I'm very grateful that she does not have those skills. That's a big relief. I think that what I connected with there, and I actually studied not Kung Fu but Taekwondo for some time, a related discipline. What I thought was most compelling is that part of what Zen teaches is that we need to find our awakening right now, whatever we're doing. That we don't worry so much about an activity being special or not special. And even the distinction between sacred and profane is a little tricky, and we try not to get stuck there. So there's a famous Zen story of the monk who comes to the master and says, "What's the meaning of Buddhism?" And he says, "Have you had breakfast yet?" And the monk says, "Yes." He says, "Wash your bowls. Wash your bowls." So finding awakening in whatever moment we're in. Kung Fu, washing our bowls.
We'll take our break right now. We'll be right back in a minute, so don't go anywhere, because you know what? We will be talking more about washing those bowls when we're back.
For over 25 years, KNXT has been serving the people of the San Joaquin Valley with good family television that's just not available anywhere else. It's important for you, the viewer, to help support this valuable tool of ministry. KNXT needs to continue to grow and bring you important programming about your faith. But sometimes it's hard to stop and find the time. Make it easy. Go to knxt.tv and find out how easy it is to support your Catholic television station, KNXT TV.
Welcome back to the second part of our second program on Buddhism. I am so graced today. Oh, sorry. We are graced, Mary Allen and Peter today, with such a panel that is able to share from their own concrete living of Buddhism insights into what for us might be just another way. For them, it's a very real way. And that's where I'd like to begin. Could you each briefly pick one thing to answer this question? How is it that concretely, daily, in a very conventional way, you are finding yourself living out the Zen practice?
Well, when I first came to practice here in the Central Valley, I had to pretty much do everything, and now I have some students, and my husband is also off on his own practice activities. So what I think I saw in the clip about letting go of self-consciousness and then letting yourself be guided by the moment. So for example, I used to drive by Chowchilla Women's Prison and think about the women in there, stuck in there without a way to turn their minds or their experiences. So that was a program I started, and now Mary Ellen does in the Chowchilla Women's Prison.
Nice.
And I also encourage people to find some activity. So now I'm actually guiding my students more than I am actually out there on the front lines, but I have students who participate in food programs, in hospice programs, and they're very much out in the world. So I'm trying to encourage them and help them bring their own gifts forward. And the other thing that I've done is, in fact, we saw Robert Scharf on that clip, and I worked some with him to try to develop some classes, even for people in the Central Valley, where they can bring some scholars out to get us more deeply grounded in our tradition so that we can really understand how to bring Buddhism into the West. So that's my work at this point and at that level, rather than being out in the front lines.
Now, Mary Ellen, tell us a little bit, maybe beginning with the work in Chowchilla, and then anything else that you think would be a concrete way that your Buddhism cleans the bowls.
Well, the fundamental thing is paying attention to one's own mind and one's own responses as you move through your daily life. So definitely going to a place like the women's prison is very challenging. And coming to understand the ways in which we entrap ourselves in our own thinking, in our own thought processes, and our own reactions, helps us when we go to the prison to be grounded and stable, even in the most difficult circumstances. And because of that, we're able to say to the prisoners, give them some idea of how to get through the day, through meditation, and through taking that meditative mind off the cushion. So it's grounded in this constant self-observation and awareness that we are able to go into the world and bring that stability to other people. So we take a vow we say to save all beings, but we take a vow to help. We're out of our own experience to help other people, and that's how we express ourselves.
You know, you just said that magic word, vow, which is so Roman Catholic. Sisters take vows, religious men take vows. Tell us a little bit about this Buddhist, you take vows. When do you take them? What are they?
When did you?
Peter.
Well, apparently I'm a slow learner because I've had to take vows many times in my life. There are a series of formal steps that people take, or they're essentially ordinations. That's one type of vow that we take. So there was a point in my life some time ago when I realized, I'm really not shopping for a spiritual practice anymore. Buddhism is my path. And I took vows and became a lay Buddhist. And I think any Catholic who looked at the vows we take would look at them and say, these are awfully familiar. They're the universal kinds of commitments we make, essentially to try to be kind. Later, I took ordination as a lay teacher. I never envisioned becoming a priest. And so I took essentially the same vows. And then again, when I ordained as a priest, I took vows again. Those are the formal vows we take. But every time that we meet together, and often if we can do this privately, every time we meet together for meditation, we finish our meditation together, taking vows. And they are essentially vows of kindness and service. Wow. So it's a big part of our practice of expressing and renewing our deepest intentions for who we want to be and how we want to be in the world. So it's sometimes people jokingly refer to Buddhist gatherings as chow and bow and vow. We have tea together, we bow together, and we take vows.
That's I'm going to remember that.
Like smells and bells?
Yeah, right. That's us
free.
all the time. And the more we have those smells and bells, the more we are who we are.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wanted to say something
And
about...
wow should be involved because you want to have that
And
moment
how?
Yeah, I wanted to say something about what Mary Ellen said about being clear. And in fact, one of the vows that we repeat when we repeat the 4 vows is, delusions are numberless. I'm not going to run out of ways to fool myself, so I have to be constantly on the lookout for them. So this is a big part of our practice, and it's one of the vows we take. Delusions are numberless. I vow to end them, to keep seeing through them, to keep noticing that I'm kidding myself and putting myself in front of other people instead of being there available to meet people. So this is a very important part of, I think, what Marianne referred to in watching yourself as you interact with others.
The experience at Chowchilla, I'm really fascinated because I know that some friends of mine, one person in particular, Benita Langford, has made it a major effort to bring her own effort at centering prayer to the prisons. And it is such a liberating experience for her, and it's so rich. Tell us how concretely this works for you when you go to the prison at Chowchilla.
Well, one of the things is when we go there, we go to Valley State Women's Prison, which is one of the two. And we go in through the recreation department, so we're not under the chaplain. Oh. So it's not a religious program. So we don't use religious language, but that doesn't matter because you can say and express the spirit of the Zen teaching without using the religious words, and this makes it accessible to women who are not specifically Buddhist. Oh, yeah. It's really not necessary to use the Buddhist jargon as such. So that's one thing. So it's accessible to everyone. The other thing is that, of course, I go there. I'm a skinny old white lady, right? And so, and so I've actually said, you probably are thinking, what does this skinny old white lady know about what we are going through? And I say, I don't know what you're going through. I can't know that. But what I do know is how I'm imprisoned in my own mind. And that's a universal experience. So I can help you with that because whether you're inside this prison or you're outside the prison, you still have the prison of your own mind. So it's that we work with. And we believe that you can have that inner freedom no matter where you are, whether you're in prison or not. And little by little, drop by drop, breath by breath, it's possible to find that even in prison. Through the experience of meditation.
That's great. Peter, where would be places, venues where outside of a prison you have found this ability to?
Well, I also work in men's prisons.
Also,
so
which one?
Pleasant Valley State Prison and Avenel State Prison, although
Good.
only recently at Avenel. That's a new program. But you asked a different question. I think I want to return to maybe the line that Mary Ellen began talking through before, and that is I still have a life very much in the world. I've had a career in education and a career in business and am in the process of retiring. And so my practice, whether it was as a layperson, as a lay teacher, or as a priest, has always been taking place as I've been living in the world, doing the things that people do to make a living in the world, going to meetings, going to sales presentations, getting on airplanes, all of the stuff that we all do. So for me, Zen has had to find a way, to find a place to flower in my ordinary, everyday life, in each moment, as opposed to reserving a few special moments. I mean, I try to meditate frequently, but most of the time, we're not sitting on the cushion, we're not living in monasteries, we're not bowing, and we're not chanting. So for me, the real reality has been in my interactions with other people, most of whom don't know anything about Zen, don't care about Zen, and many of whom, most of whom don't know that I have anything to do with Zen. So that's, in a sense, what my teacher refers to as trying to be an inner priest as opposed to an outer priest, practicing on the inside, wearing an invisible robe when I'm out in the world, sort of in moment by moment, washing my bowls, moment by moment.
This has been so, easy for me to appreciate from my Roman Catholic base. The whole idea of grace pervading the world and be that we live in grace, and that the things of the separation between secular and sacred, which Peter said, got to watch those distinctions. We're already in enlightened Catholicism way beyond that. We see the incarnate Word right here among us and how important that is. So I'm resonating with everything, and it's been so helpful. In our final minutes, I wonder if there's something, Grace, that you know that really this program needed a final thought for everyone to give one final comment.
I wanted to say something a little about my own experience in going into the prison. And I have been a clinical psychologist earlier, and I still hold my license, but I don't practice. So I've been in lockup wards before, and it's a very frightening experience, even more frightening to be locked into a prison. And I wanted to talk about that experience of fear that all of my students and myself have experienced in going into the prison. There's something in a human being that doesn't want to be locked up. And to enter that brings to life in us this fear and dealing with it. We're only there for a short time. These people have to deal with it all the time. So that's one element of the experience. The other element of the experience is that we all had an idea before we went into the prison about who these people were, what it meant to be a prisoner, how different they were from us. And what we came to find out, every single person talks about it who goes into the prison, is that these are just human beings. Their circumstances are slightly different than ours, but we are very connected. And when we sit together and meditate together, it feels the same as any other setting.
Mary Ellen, maybe 30 seconds.
Well, the other thing I want to just bring up is that we also do hospice work. And I've been doing work as a chaplain, as a volunteer chaplain, and it's the same kind of thing, that coming with that awareness of our own fear of death and knowing that I carry that with me and being able to be in the room, the quiet presence in the room, to the person and the family who are dying is another expression of our bodhisattva vow, as we call it.
Well, I want to thank our wonderful Buddhist panel that was here today on this episode of the Forum. It's been so enlightening to me, and I hope you have felt the same way, that these concepts of finding the ability in every moment to not waste it, to be in that moment, and not to be lost in the past and looking towards the future, to be present to reality. Let's hope that next week when we meet again, we'll have a chance to reflect again on something as good as this. Till then, God bless.